So this was originally going to be a video on Mahito and how strong he was. As such, I did the normal thing, reread a ton of stuff, including all of his fights, and took my notes on statements and feats. Pretty standard procedure, honestly. What I didn't expect was the rabbit hole I went down that is the Jujutsu Kaisen power scaling community. And it's unfortunately a community that overall has a lot of misconceptions about how to even approach scaling the series, due to just how its power system even works. Now, I'm not coming in on a high horse here. A while back, I made a video on how strong Yuji is, and part of why I'm making this is to correct some of my own mistakes. It just so happens that the community as a whole has made similar mistakes, plus even bigger ones. Mistakes that have garnered some level of popular belief among the fandom. By the way, quick interjection here, there are going to be some manga spoilers, so that's your warning. Anyway, this all starts at Curse Energy as a power system, and the fact that Akutami constructs it in a way that makes it really hard to use for objective scaling. Let's start with the most interesting aspect of this, and how domain expansion is used to make some weird arguments. The first argument that has gained some popularity and is possibly the most interesting is the idea of using the visuals of a domain expansion to scale overall power. A good example of this is saying that Jogo's domain expansion is a mountain, so he's mountain level in overall power. The same goes for Dagon and his domain expansion having an island with mountains in the distance and stuff like that. This argument comes from not understanding how domain expansion works. It's made from the idea that domain expansion is creation, but it really isn't. Domain expansion is the temporary manifestation of one's innate domain. The aesthetic of the innate domain, as far as we've seen, is not dependent on one's level of power, but it is more of a metaphysical mental space. Domain expansion only makes it temporarily physical to garner certain benefits in a fight. And yes, this is very different from a genuine creation feat, as even Akutami makes a very clear distinction, with Mai being the only character to actually create matter with cursed energy. And what's her limit without other circumstances? She can make a bullet and then she's done for the day. That's not to say that Mai is equivalent to special grade curses or really anyone that can use domain expansion, but it shows the sheer difference between a genuine creation feat in the series and something like the temporary creation of one's innate domain. This is because Akutami likely never designs the aesthetic of a domain with power in mind. He made Jogo's domain a hot mountain because he's like a volcano and he gets pissed off easily. He made Dagon's domain a tropical island because of the aquatic theme. Hell, despite the fact that Dagon's domain is shown as a tropical island with a vast ocean, when Megumi looks for the edge of the domain, it's right at his feet, despite there being a whole ocean as far as we can see. I'm not totally sure what to make of that in detail, but it definitely reinforces the idea of domains being more metaphysical than physically present. Now, if you want to make the argument that Jogo and relative characters are mountain level, then I'm totally willing to listen to that. Using domain expansions is just not a very strong argument because of the mechanics of the technique. This sort of brings me to the next problem with how people scale the series, the one and only Black Flash. Black Flash, as it is well known, takes an attack and squares it by the power of 2.5. This sounds simple enough, right? Just figure out how strong Yuji's normal punch is and then do some basic math. Voila, you have the strength of his Black Flash. The problem is this: multipliers are easy, but exponents are unit specific. What do I mean by this? Well, let's set up a hypothetical. Let's say we have a character that can normally punch with a force of around 2000 joules. Well, when we put that to the power of 2.5, we get around 178 million joules. However, 2000 joules is also equivalent to 2 kilojoules. And if we run that through the calculation, then we have around 5.6 kilojoules, which is just a little over 5000 joules. That is not at all equivalent because the answer changes depending on the unit of measurement that's used. Now that begs the question, if using exponents to calculate power is the only way, and these calculations are are unit dependent, then what unit of measurement do we use? Well, that's where Akutami decided to be a clever fuck and screw us over. This is because cursed energy refers to three separate things: the power system, the energy source the characters in the series use, and its own self-contained unit of measurement. Because in the Chapter 48 Volume Extra, Akutami clarifies that when measuring cursed energy, you start at 2 cursed energy, referring to it as if it was a unit of measurement. The problem with that is, Akutami never gives us a basis to set up a conversion rate between cursed energy and a different unit of measurement, so it's impossible to calculate the power of anyone's Black Flash. To sum it up, Akutami made it impossible to realistically calculate the power of Black Flash because he made some shit up in the volume extras to better explain the attack. Is that a little frustrating? Yeah. Does that make it less canon? Unfortunately not. The volume extras are written directly by Akutami himself, and they contradict nothing in the series, so we kinda have to take them for what they are. Now, the next piece of weird scaling I want to discuss is also surrounding Black Flash, but more as it pertains to speed scaling. You see, Black Flash is when cursed energy is applied to an attack in the space of 1/1,000,000th of a second. Presumably because of how small this time frame is, a time frame no one can reasonably think consciously in, there is not a single sorcerer alive who can perform the technique at will. Unfortunately, this idea has somehow led people to believe that characters like Mahito or Yuji have a massively hypersonic reaction speed, since somehow the idea got started that Mahito can use the technique at will. This is despite the fact that in Chapter 127 he states that he wants to use the technique again, implying that he can't at that moment. And it's not like he can use it at will after his transformation. He only accessed that transformation because he learned how to do the technique at all, which brought him closer to understanding his soul. And if he could use it at will after that fact, he would have used it at least once during his transformed period. Not even Yuji, not even Gojo himself is able to use it at will, so where this idea came from, I genuinely have no idea. This is especially baffling when we have the statement about how piercing blood is said to reach the speed of sound, implying that's its fastest velocity, and Yuji is barely able to react to it in Shibuya. We also have Naoya, whose top speed is stated to be above subsonic, and that's it. These are blatant facts given to us by the narrator that debunk most forms of massively hypersonic scaling. Ultimately, a lot of these arguments come down to misunderstandings of how cursed energy as a power system even works. Not that I can really blame anyone. I myself am guilty of some of these. Remember my Yuji video, it has some problems. Akutami does not make everything clear in how he words things, and you kinda have to look into the meaning he's going for and the implications they have for the dynamics of the fights he writes. But if we're going to attempt to power scale Jujutsu Kaisen, then these are important things to understand. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Like I said, cursed energy is a weird power system to scale, with lots of seemingly insignificant details, use of abstract concepts for its abilities, and dialogue surrounding it that can be hard to interpret. But I hope this video helps break down some of the misconceptions surrounding the power system and the series as a whole. And I hope with this, I can do some Jujutsu power scalings myself in the near future. I do want to do that Mahito video eventually, just not yet. Anyway, have a good one, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.